What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands On channel. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it as always. First of all, I hope you and your family had a great Independence Day, and hope you celebrated our nation's, revolution against the Redcoats, the British Empire that tried to rule over us back in the day. And our founding fathers were like, nah, we ain't doing that. And so if you had a great 4th of July, obviously that was brought to you by people that were willing to stand up against a very powerful nation. England at the time was probably one of the superpowers of the world, if not the main superpower of the world at that time. And so that was very brave, and a lot of those people lost their lives. They lost their fortunes and stuff like this, their homes and different things like that, so that you and I would be able to be and remain free. And I think that's a great thing. So I'm out here today celebrating a little freedom and just getting the canoe out, and I thought I'd bring you guys along, and hopefully we can catch a fish or two while we talk here. But I wanted to talk to you about something else that has been pressing. For the last week or so, I have seen several really good rulings coming out of the court system, and it's very unusual. There were 3 victories in the Supreme Court, but I can actually only remember what 2 of them are right now off the top of my head. I'm not looking at my computer. But one of them was basically ruling that affirmative action, picking and selecting certain people based on race, not merit. The Supreme Court ruled that that's unconstitutional, at least on the college level. So that's good news. Now, I don't know who's going to enforce that rule, because right now, Biden and Merrick Garland and all these people are in power at the DOJ. So, Biden controls the DOJ, and so therefore they decide what they're going to go after, criminally and stuff like this. Come on, get it. Oh man, I missed. So anyway, I don't know who's going to enforce that, at least under this current administration, but it's still good news. It's still a victory. And of course, the liberals have been melting down ever since this happened. And oftentimes they'll show their true colors given enough time. They'll come out and say, oh, we should get rid of the courts, or we should stack the courts, or whatever, and have a whole bunch more, people in there instead of just what we currently have. And so anyway, that's always their answer. If they don't win, they want to change the rules of the game. And that's basically how that works. So that was a good big victory. And another big victory, the Supreme Court decided that, you can't be compelled as a business. You can't make someone else, bake a cake or make a website for your LGBTQ preferences or whatever. The Supreme Court ruled against that. They were like, no, you have a right to practice your own Christianity or religion, whatever that may be. And so I thought that was a really big victory. So now, the next time you hear about one of these people that's being picked on by the LGBTQ community, and forced to basically make a cake or make a website or whatever it may be that they don't want to make because it violates their own Christian principles and stuff like that, now they won't have to do that. And they'll have no legal standing, to press any charges on these people for denying someone service, because they're like, hey, I remember there used to be businesses all over the place that had signs that said, like, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. And that's how it should be again, because, there are so many other issues besides just the LGBTQ stuff. But, people coming in there and just acting like a jerk or whatever, or going in and vandalizing, or going in and robbing your place or whatever. You should be allowed to refuse service to those people. And so I think that's good that the Supreme Court got in on that. And I can't remember what the third one was, but yeah, 3 big victories last week. And so we have to celebrate those as they come. We don't get many victories, especially with as much Democrat control is going on in the country right now. So anyway, I just wanted to bring you guys along. Maybe we catch a few fish and just talk about things that are going on. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think about all this stuff? Is it about time that we got rid of affirmative action? Is it about time that the Supreme Court rules that, you can't compel a business to do something that's against their will, against their morals? It's pretty self-explanatory, at least in my opinion, but, for whatever reason, it hasn't been going that way for a while. Oh, I got a little fish on there. Wasn't even sure. Little baby bass, but I'll take it. Always fun to catch some bass. All right, now don't hook me when I try to get you unhooked here, buddy. Oh boy, got him good too. Little tiny bass, little micro bass, but I'll take it. That's a good looking bass though. It's got good color, and that'll be a big one of these days, so we'll throw him back. But yeah, I've just been hanging out with family over the weekend. We had some family come by. My nieces and nephews and my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, they came by over the weekend. We popped fireworks off at my place in the suburbs there because, you know, they're actually out in the city, so they can't pop fireworks. And, you know, I mean, it just goes to show, one of those things that I've always said is that if you're not allowed to have a burn, you know, like a brush fire in your yard, then you're not very free. At least that's my opinion. If you can't burn in your yard or pop fireworks and stuff like that, then you're not very free. You should probably look at getting out of that city and getting out into a place where you have more freedom, which is the country. And it comes at a cost. You know, of course, you're going to have to put up with the chiggers and the mosquitoes and the, you know, whatever, ticks and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, I'm just in a pretty good mood today because, you know, it's obviously after 4th of July, and we had a great weekend. We had a lot of fun. My nieces and nephews are maybe 10, 12 years old at the most. I don't know if they're 12 yet, but, you know, 9 to 11 years old, something like that. And so they had a lot of fun watching the fireworks go off. They bought this one. I didn't buy any fireworks because I don't spend my money on that kind of stuff, but they bought this one firework that was like called the mother of all bombs. And it had like 6 or 8 mortar tubes in it. And man, when they set that off as the grand finale, I thought they were going to burn my neighborhood down because the explosion was, the sparks were coming very low and down into the treetops and stuff like that. So I was like, oh crap, we're going to have a crown fire or something, but it didn't happen. Everything was okay. But still, it made me really nervous when that one went off, the mother of all bombs. So beware. If you're going to fire off one of those, you probably ought to make sure you have a big empty field or empty parking lot or whatever. And around my suburb property, we got those pine trees all around. And one of my greatest fears is that one of those 40 trees that surround my perimeter will, you know, catch on fire. And then I told my wife it'd be like basically the world's biggest Roman candle going off because, you know, those pine trees, they burn like crazy. But anyway, another thing I wanted to talk about, back on topic here, is that a federal judge that was appointed by Trump has ruled over the weekend, I believe it might have been on the 4th of July. I couldn't believe it when I saw this news story. But a federal judge has ruled that the government, it was basically a victory for free speech. I'm trying to say it the right way. But the government, like the FBI, the CIA, all these alphabet agencies, they're not allowed to censor speech. Even if they call it misinformation or disinformation, it doesn't matter. They're not allowed to censor speech. And so a federal judge, again appointed by Trump, put an injunction on these agencies. So they're not allowed to do that anymore, according to that federal judge. Now, the problem I see with that is the same sort of thing we were talking about a minute ago, the problem I see with that is the same thing we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, is that who's going to enforce that? When you have, you know, the Bidens controlling the DOJ and stuff like this, and the FBI and all the other alphabet agencies, you know, who's going to enforce that? Who's going to go arrest these people whenever they, you know, break that injunction or whatever? And I don't know, I'm not a legal beagle, so I don't know how much power an injunction has, you know, versus an actual law or something like that, but it's a step in the right direction. So I was happy to hear that. You know, you guys remember all the stuff, man. You couldn't talk about, you know, whether Trump was had the election stolen from him in 2020. You couldn't talk about all the suspicious things that were going on with the voting machines, with any of that stuff. Before that, you couldn't question the COVID tyranny that was going on, the lockdowns, the mask mandates, the, you know, forced vaccination, all on and on and on. You guys remember. They have been using social media to control speech. And so this federal judge smacked that down and was like, no, you can't do that, and we're putting an injunction on that. So hopefully that will make some of these agencies that are abusing the First Amendment, that'll make them, you know, second guess before they do that sort of stuff. I'm not saying it's going to stop them, because again, I don't know who's going to enforce something like that when you've got the communist Merrick Garland up there, you know, controlling the Department of Justice. So they're going to decide what they're going to go after and what they're not. So anyway, that was all good news. Now, I do need to tell you guys, especially people that have been following the channel for a long time, my subscribers and stuff, we did have a tragedy over the weekend. It was actually on Friday, I believe. My best friend, Ranger, my dog, you know, he was half Rhodesian Ridgeback, a great dog. He got too old and he started having liver problems and stuff, and we were medicating him and doing all sorts of different things. But over the weekend, actually last week, he got to where he couldn't even stand up on our tile floor anymore, and man, he was starting to suffer. And he had like lipomas all over him, and you know, so he was real lumpy, and you know, he was just getting old. And he, you know, even probably about 3 or 4 months ago, I knew that, you know, he wasn't long for this world, because he got to the point where he couldn't jump in and out of the back of the pickup truck anymore. And I don't have a real tall pickup truck or anything, but he could, you know, all of his life until the last month or so, he could jump right into that pickup truck, and we'd go over here to the land, and sometimes he'd get in the canoe with me and ride around, and we'd, you know, go hike all over the land, stuff like that. He was just a wonderful dog, the best dog I've ever had. I ain't gonna lie, and I'm not just saying that because he's mine. I mean, he was a special dog. He was a very special dog. I mean, really relaxed and chill. Now, he wasn't a real great guard dog. Oh man, had a bite there. He wasn't a great guard dog, you know. He would bark a little if strangers came around, but he wasn't like a, you know, the kind of dog that was going to defend you if a criminal came in there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he would have, but I doubt it. He kind of was a little bit like a cowardly lion in a way, you know, and which we always thought was kind of funny, because they used those dogs in Africa, the Rhodesian Ridgeback, to hunt lions. And our joke, our family joke, was he was a lying dog, not a lion dog, you know. So he wouldn't have made it down on the Africa savannah where they're hunting lions and stuff with him. And anyway, he was kind of a little bit on the lazy side, especially as he got older. He didn't want to do much except lay around and stuff, unless I was coming over here. He always knew, you know, he would see whenever I was grabbing my fishing poles and certain things I would do. I'd grab my cooler and my fishing poles and stuff like that. And Ranger Boy, he knew, oh, Daddy's fixing to go over to the land. I want to go too. And so he would get that look, you know, like, oh, hey, take me with me, you know, take me with you, you know, and stuff like that. And that was all fantastic. But anyway, last Friday night, maybe it was Thursday night, before I went to bed, I noticed, well, he threw up like 3 or 4 times. And I mean big piles of vomit. So I had to like clean up vomit until like 2 in the morning. I was just like, oh my God, what the hell is this, you know? And so I'm cleaning up vomit. I left him outside because I was like, man, if he's throwing up, I can't have him throwing up in my house all night while I'm sleeping. So I put him outside, which he doesn't like. He liked to be inside. He was an inside dog. He was always like laying there on his little spot or on the tile, you know. And anyway, I put him outside for a while, and my wife let him in because he stopped vomiting and stuff. And when I woke up the next day, he was laying there dead in my living room floor, right there on his spot where he liked to lay. And so it's a real tragedy. We're going to probably take a break for a while and not have a dog for a while, just because we've got a lot going on, a lot of irons in the fire. But I'm not gonna lie, it's created an emptiness, a void, you know, in my heart. It broke my heart, man, I ain't gonna lie. And it took me several days to just be able to talk about it like this, because I mean, I truly just loved the dog. He was the best dog I ever had. He was, you know, he knew about, I don't know, 10 or 12 different tricks that he could do on command, and he just loved doing that sort of stuff. He was just obedient, always by my side, you know, always puppy dogging me and stuff, and just following me around and stuff like that. So he will be greatly missed. And if you guys have followed the channel for a while, I'm sure you've seen Ranger here. He's been in some of my videos where we were doing the SHTF scenarios and stuff. And so he'll be sorely missed around my family. And even my nieces and nephews, everybody loved Ranger. I mean, he was just such a sweet dog. He would come up to you, even if he didn't know you very much. If he knew that you knew me and you were friendly with me, he would come up to you and like lay his little head against you, or his big head up against your leg or whatever, and try to get you to pet him and stuff. He was just a special dog, and I don't think there'll ever be another one like him. And you know, so yeah, that was the worst part about my whole weekend, was just dealing with that. And every time, you know, maybe, you know, if you've had a dog that you really love and you lost them, you know what I'm talking about. But you know, like every day, there's certain things that I would do. You know, when I got up in the morning, I would go over and let the dog out. Well, now I'm feeling like I'm forgetting something all the time. Like even when I came here, I'm like, what am I forgetting? And then I'm like, oh yeah, Ranger. I would normally be bringing him with me, or at least if nothing else, I'd be setting him up so that he could, you know, be there at the house while I was over here fishing and stuff. And man, what a great dog. Lots of just funny stories and great memories that we had with him, but he didn't make it. And so yeah, we're really sad about that, and we're dealing with that. And honestly guys, that's why I didn't make a video over the weekend, was I was just too, you know, emotional about it and everything. And as you should be, you know, again, I lost my best friend, man, so it's a big deal, and I'm kind of reeling from that. And hopefully, you know, he's in a better place. And one thing that's really great about, I mean, not really great, that's a bad way of putting it. One thing that I'm happy about is that he didn't suffer for long. You know, he was having liver problems, and we were medicating that with some special stuff, like some kind of thistle or something that's supposed to help liver health. And that was working pretty good and making him at least to where he could get around and stuff. But there at the end, his back legs just weren't working. He couldn't even walk across my tile floor to get outside. And in fact, one night, one of the last nights he was alive, I was back in my office working, and all of a sudden I heard this noise, and I thought it was like a bird chirping or something, or squeaking. And so after a while of that, I went out and checked it out, and sure enough, it was Ranger Boy. He was stuck on the tile. He couldn't even get up. His back legs were like spread in such a way, like a wishbone, where basically he was laying flat on his belly, and he couldn't get up. He couldn't make himself get up. So I had to reach down there and pick him up and help him. And he was a 100-pound dog, so it wasn't easy, you know, to pick that dog up off the ground. But we got it done, and I got him over to the carpet where he was able to walk around again easier. But yeah, it was just a tragedy, man. I mean, it's just too bad that, you know, our best friends, our dogs, don't last as long as we do, because man, it's just, you know, it's just way too short. He only lasted like 11 or 12 years. And you know, if you don't know this, the larger breed dogs, that's pretty average. You know, if you get 10 or 12 years out of a large breed dog, you're doing pretty good. The smaller ones can live longer, but I've never been a small dog guy. You know, I kind of like a good sized dog. So anyway, not trying to bum you out, you know, I wanted to share some good news, and just again wish you guys happy post Independence Day. I hope you had a great time with your family and got to spend good quality time celebrating and enjoying the freedom that our founding fathers, you know, fought and died for so that we could have. But anyway, I guess I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off here and get back to doing some fishing. Maybe I can get serious and actually catch a big one today. I might even take some home. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to actually eat any tonight or what, but if I catch enough crappie or something, I might go ahead and take them home and have a fish fry. But yeah, anyway, I appreciate all you guys and your continued support. And if you don't mind, say a little prayer for my family so that we can, you know, kind of get over this thing with our loss, and hopefully again that, you know, Ranger's in a better place because he's not suffering anymore. And you know, maybe enough time goes by, maybe we'll get a new dog. But right now it's not even on our radar because our hearts are still so tender from what just happened. I mean, it was a big deal. He left a big hole in our hearts. So anyway, if you guys have dogs or cats or whatever, go over and love them up, because man, they just don't last long enough. You gotta love them while they're there. And you know, one of the last things I'll say about this is I think part of the reason that Ranger was such a good dog and so unique and had such a bond with me and my wife was that I'm self-employed. So I'm always either, if I'm doing a job, I can kind of pick and choose when I'm doing that job and stuff like that. So oftentimes I would take Ranger with me, you know, and he'd just stay in the truck or whatever. But he was, out of all the dogs I've ever had, I spent more time with him. I would say like 80 to 90% of his time and my time were spent together around the yard, around the property, over here. And so I'm constantly turning around looking for Ranger. And so it's going to take me a little while to get over that. But anyway, as usual, someone's calling while I'm trying to make a video. So I'm going to wrap it up right here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And until then, we'll see you next time.